Good morning, everyone. My name is Jay, and I am a child of God. It's something I didn't realize until I came to this church, almost 18 years ago. And it has saved my life and transformed my life. And I realize today that I am loved and that I am a child of God, as all of you are. So I'm grateful to be here today. And I'm grateful to be a member of Celebrate Life service in the evening. My job now is to, traditionally, we have a speaker that comes up and shares testimony of parts of their life and how they've, transformed. And this morning we have a dear friend of mine, Bill, who's been very instrumental in my journey. I met Bill basically the time I came into this church in just short of 18 years ago. Bill has been very, as I said, instrumental in my recovery and the recovery of many. And I'm really excited that he's here today. We did have him booked last year for the anniversary, and unfortunately he was ill that morning and couldn't make it, so you were stuck with me last year. So this year that's not going to happen, and Bill's here this morning, and I'm just, I don't know, words can't say enough my gratitude towards Bill and what he does for this community, and he's definitely a child of God who just does good things. Anyway, if we please give a nice warm welcome for Bill Hayden, please.
Even a little seat in case I fall down. I haven't done this before. I've done it Celebrate Life. I'm here because of Celebrate Life. Danny was a really good friend of mine. I knew Danny before he came here, and he jumped on me right away when Celebrate Life started. And him and Muriel Green, who was on the board of where I worked, I think she asked me the first time. So a number of years ago I came here, and I was told, touched gently on the back after I spoke and told Jesus loves me. And as a result of that, I became a member of this church and have been ever since. But why I'm here today is they want me to talk a little bit about my recovery. I'm an alcoholic. I've been sober over 62 years. It's really one day at a time. And I became an alcoholic. I'm not sure why. I think we all set up differently. My childhood was not great, sometimes okay, sometimes not. I think probably when I was in my early teens, back then I'd be called a juvenile delinquent. Today we just call them misguided youth. And blame the community. And so I worked through. One of the things I had the ability to almost learn anything, and I did all kinds of different things. I won't take you through my military service, but I did a 1.5-year special force and 6 years, did a 7.5-year hitch, and left the military because of my alcoholism. And I was a pretty good senior NCO, I think. My commanding officer used to tell me I was like a nursery rhyme. When I was good, I was very, very good. And when I was bad, I was horrid. But anyway, I get out, and for about 1.5 years after I drifted into a lot of things you don't even need to know about, none of them good. And I got a job with a company I really liked, and in sales, and I was up in the Barrie area on Lake Simcoe, and during the summer it was very, very busy. But come the fall, I had time on my hand and money in my pocket. I got heavily into drink again, and I lost that job because of drinking. And thank God the 12-step worked, because that's all there was back then. One of the managers, one of the stores, phoned me and asked me if I thought I had a problem. And I really would normally say no, but in this case it seemed like a way out, so I said yes. And he said, well, I'm going to come and see you. And he came and he told me his story. He came from Holland to get away from booze. He'd lost the business over there, and found out when he got here we had more booze here than they had there. And anyway, he told me his life story, and then he said, you want to go to a meeting? And I thought, oh boy. And again, deep down I didn't want to, but I thought probably the answer was yes. So he took me to my first meeting. It was a little United Church in Elmville, which is just outside of Barrie on the way to Wasaga Beach. And we pulled in the parking lot, a few cars there. It was an anniversary meeting of that group, so they had, back then they probably had a big crowd, would have been 25 people. I was quite nervous going into a church at that time. I thought, you know, downstairs for a couple of weeks, and then they drag you up and you make you ride the donkey, and I thought, yeah. My attitude was, and so the other thing, I come from a large family, there's 12 of us. Most of them didn't want anything to do with me, and here I have 25 people wanting to shake my hand and tell me they're glad to see me, and that unnerved me. Anyway, my story went on from there, and after a period of time, I maintained sobriety. Actually, I got the job back with that company, and I worked with them for 21 years. And the only stipulation they made is that I had to go to the 21 customers I had and tell them I was an alcoholic and I was going to do something about it. And they backed me tremendously. I couldn't believe how much they backed me. And so I was with that company. When I left them, I was a general sales manager, and they did something I didn't like, so I realized I had a choice, and I left them. And I went back to school. I was hired by the Addiction Research Foundation. I spent almost a year at School for Addiction Studies, although I'd done some addiction studies at MAC when I did marketing way back when I was in the Niagara Peninsula. And so I did that. One of the things I found out in AA, when I first went into AA in Barrie, my group was Collier Street United, and I was probably 15 years younger than anyone in the group. And I didn't really, you know, moving from there to the Niagara Peninsula, I get in the group. Actually, my group was in Hamilton, Regina and Dunsmuir, another United Church. And there was a lot of young guys there. And at that time, there was no detox or treatment center. And so we got a lot of 12-step calls. It was nothing for us to be sitting beside a bed at 2 o'clock in the morning trying to get someone to come out of the DTs. And so it was very different. And we were young, we didn't care. And I think, I've said it before, I think we sort of sectioned off the Niagara Peninsula, and we were trying to get people to come to AA that didn't even drink. I call that the missionary stage. Yeah. So it progressed from there, and as I say, I went to Ottawa, and I belonged to AA in Ottawa. I worked there with the company, and I was there for 9 years. I met my wonderful wife, Susan, who I've been with for 43 years, who's with me here today, and great support for me. And so it was quite different, all the different things. I could go on and tell you stories for an hour about different people who I've learned from. Because, you know, first off, in any occupation, ego is involved. And when you're in recovery, you know you're going to do the 12-step this person, 12-step that. And after a while, you realize, I 12-stepped the Finlander, and it was ego. No one else would work with him. He's a great big guy. And he came from Finland. He'd been an iron worker in Hamilton for 18 years and spoke really swear words was his only real English. And I didn't speak Finnish. And I picked him up and drove him to a meeting in Oakville, a Monday night meeting. I come in the door, and the lady on the door that was greeting people had just come back from Helsinki and spoke Finnish. And I'll tell you, that got my attention. And things like that happened. And it's things that were humorous. Like one of my best friends down there, Adam in the Niagara Peninsula, just before he got sober, he used to take a taxi to work because he was too drunk to drive his car. And he drove a bus. And so I mean, lots of things like that. So anyway, I got to the work for ARF, and what I did after my training is I coordinated the detox units from Kenora to Cornwall in the province. There's 27 of them, and the treatment centers. And I trained new detox departments, and I did that kind of stuff. And the traveling was quite crazy. It's a big province, and someone offered me an opportunity to come here to Brockville and see if I could do something with Brock Cottage. And because I grew up in Port Hope, Cobourg area, on the water, small town, just like Brockville, I thought, boy, this is great. And Sue's from Ottawa originally, so that's good for her too. And so we came here, and for 20 years, I was the director of Brock Cottage. And I figured it out one day, probably during that period of time, we had about 2,000 people come through there. And a lot of them made it, and some of them didn't, but that wasn't up to us. I never ever took responsibility what happened to someone. It was really, recovery is an inside job, and if they choose not to, that's okay. But a lot of them did choose to, and a lot of them are still around here. The other thing I did, I had a sister I talked about before, Joan, who'd been in treatment, really bad in booze and drugs. And she got out just before I came here, and she started back in after about a month, and I went and saw her. She didn't know who I was. I went with my brother Bob, and she said, well, I had two brothers, Bill and Bob, but she didn't know it was us. And she died about 3 weeks later. So this disease does a lot of things to a lot of people. It doesn't matter what your background is. I was thinking the other day, I was talking about it. I did a 12-step guy with another chap who went to the hospital and talked to a guy that was really sick in Ottawa. And the next day, that chap became a trade commissioner in one of the Asian countries. And so it doesn't matter what background you come from, alcohol takes everybody. And so Brockville, the other thing I did when I was here, because when working for the Addiction Research Foundation, I found out there was very few treatment centers for women, and compared to men. And I knew, because of my work with health and housing, I knew how to write a proposal, and I thought I'd get the money. So I wrote the proposal, and in the proposal, the Minister of Housing at that time, Haviva Hosak, was quite a militant feminist. And in the proposal, I said, in Eastern Ontario, there's 218 beds for men and only 12 for women. And I got the money, $500,000 within 3 weeks. And so Tenant House came to be. But it was because I got information from someone that did that in Sudbury. I got information from someone that did that in Ottawa. These were recovering people who had done this before. And so it came to be. With a lot of help. I had about 18 women from the community on the advisory board. And so I was pleased with that. So, by my life, I could tell you stories about people for hours, different people I've met in recovery. And one just phoned me yesterday because he shares my birthday, 9th March. He was with me for about 1.5 years, and he phoned me from their home in the Bahamas. And when he came, he was 18 with long hair and had some convictions. And he had a bench warrant out for him, and after about 3 months, he had his hair shorn, and he was back in college here. And he went back to Toronto to face the bench warrant, and the staff sergeant had arrested him, saw him, and they withdrew the charges because he's in recovery. And he's got 32 years in now, and his wife and him are very well off. So these stories, and it's all about recovery because it's an inside job, and they do it. And I realized, one of the things I realized early on is everybody counts or nobody counts. And another thing I learned is if you're working with people, you have to treat everyone as an individual because we're all different. And so sometimes I get in trouble because I always ask people I'm interested in people. I ask them what they do, how they do it, and all of this. Sometimes it gets me in trouble, but I'm interested. It's not for any reason. I still really believe in everybody being the same. One of my favorite words that everyone would recognize that I used a lot with people in recovery is mendacity. Mendacity. And what that is the ability to lie to ourselves and believe it. And I'll tell you, alcoholics do that well. I'm only going to have one more. I'm not hurting anyone but myself. Think of the list. But as human beings, I think we all maybe could use that word periodically. And I guess there's all kinds of different things I could tell you. I don't want to run into somebody else's time, but I really like Rockville. We've been here 37 years now, and it's a really good city. I have no problem with anyone else, and I should tell you, I used to go to meetings a lot. When I first got sober, I used to go to 4 or 5 meetings a week, and that's how I learned. I really, I had no social skills at all. You know, I was a good soldier, but it was hard bitten in a different world in the airborne regiment. And I learned most of my social skills from AA members, and who, if I said something they didn't agree, they would point it out to me. And most of them would tell me why. And so it was an education in itself. I should tell you, I got this booklet here about 58 or 59 years ago at a little meeting outside of Grimsby, Ontario. It was left over from a AA conference. And a couple of things they'd written in the front. The first 3 steps, we heard 2 of them last week, but the first 3 steps taught me how to give up. The 4th and 5th taught me how to own up. 7, 8, and 9 taught me how to make up. And 10, 11, and 12 taught me how to grow up. And I think it's in the center of this, because back then, for the first couple of years in AA, I didn't function very well. The fog lifted periodically. And I had been in the hospital when I was 26 in Quebec, and my family were told I probably wouldn't be back. And I made it through that, and I think back periodically how fortunate I am. Health-wise, I was diagnosed last spring with lung cancer, both lungs. And it shook me up first, and then I realized, well, if you're living one day at a time, you live one day at a time. And I got a good doctor over there, and he said, for 91, you're in really good shape, and we'll do this kind of treatment, immunotherapy, and so forth, for no side effects at all. An itch from the medicine, and one day at a time, they seem to be, said they'll do this for over 2 years. So I'm just going to do my AA thing and live one day at a time. And it's I'm glad I'm healthy. I'm my age in March the 9th, I'll be 92. Hey, yeah. If I get there, one day at a time. But in this booklet, they had a description of the AA way, and back then, it really worked for me because I understood it. And so I'd like to read it. The AA way. I found myself in a bottomless pit of sorrow, woe, and despair, when a ray of light revealed to me the steps of a winding stair. In vain I tried to reach these steps, of myself it could not be done. When I cried for help, a voice replied, "You're standing on step number 1. Whose voice it was I could not tell, and I asked, "Just who are you? Please don't go away, you're helping me." He said, "You were standing on step number 2. I had found a friend who could help me out. I knew he could set me free. I trusted in him, whoever he was, and he led me to step number 3. I sat on this step and thought of myself as I had never thought before, of my wasted life and the harm I had done. He showed me to step number 4. Then I said to this friend, whoever you are, I'd be better dead than alive, for I'm a cheat, a liar, and a thief. He said, "You were standing on step number 5. With you as a friend, a helper, and guide, I can rise from this terrible fix. I'll go as you say if you lead the way." He said, "You are now on step number 6. I know I'm not worth the help you're giving to me. It's like manna from heaven. I'll do my best to mend my ways. You are standing on step number 7. I harm my wife, my children, my friends, but will amend before it's too late." Then the voice by my side so gently replied, "You are standing on step number 8. I will make amends wherever I can when the power to do so is mine." Again came the voice more clear than before, "You are standing on step number 9. I'll admit I've been wrong, but want to go right, and stand as a man among men." Again came the voice of man of my choice, "You are standing on step number 10. This man by my side, such a wonderful friend, he was surely sent from heaven. I shall always be thankful for what he has done. Then he led me to step number 11. Then lo and behold, I'd reached the top, the day was bright and fair. And I thought of those I had left behind in the bottomless pit of despair. The ray of light which came to me and revealed the winding stair came from the torch in the hand of a friend. I must throw my light in there. This torch is a guide to show the way. I must see that it's always lit. Without this light, I can easily fall to the depth of the bottomless pit. I must never forget this wonderful friend in whose joy I now can delve. He is with me each day, and I hear him say, "You are now on step number 12. To steer ourselves clear of this bottomless pit where woe and sorrow are rife, there's one sure way. Take it day by day and follow the AA way of life." Thank you.
Just wait 1 second, Bill. Rachel's going to thank you.
Hi, Bill.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm a child of God. And I wanted to thank you so much for speaking for us today. That was amazing. And you've inspired me so much, more than you will ever know. I'm actually in recovery myself and a tenant house girl. And I came to Brockville to go through tenant house and stayed here. So you are a huge part of my recovery and the reason why I'm in Brockville and at this church. So I thank you for that. And just hearing your story and knowing all you've done gives me strength, and I know you've helped so many people over the years, and that's a huge thing. So I would like to pray for you right now.
Thank you.
Dear Lord, I thank you for Bill, and I thank you for all the people that he's helped through you, Lord, and I pray that you'll be with him in his health issues, and that you'll give him the strength and the courage to go through them, Lord. And I pray that you'll help him to live one day at a time and keep moving forward, Lord. And bless him, and thank you for everything you're doing and continue to doing through him. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you.